I think that this opportunity for us as staff to work on a visionary piece that has clear senior management and political support is a great opportunity. One of the cornerstones of it is the work we have been doing on climate protection and greenhouse gas reductions. And again, the long-term goal, not our 2020 goal, but our long-term goal is to eliminate dependence on fossil fuels. To put that in context of a target, the Council has already adopted a solid metric for success in this area, and it is to reduce community greenhouse gas emissions by 33% below 2007 levels by 2020, and to have all new construction in the city carbon neutral by 2020 as well. Now, one of the things in terms of the city and some history on greenhouse gas reductions is that we actually take these targets fairly seriously. This graph shows the emissions at a community-wide basis in Vancouver, and despite a population increase of 27% in the last 20 years, our greenhouse gas emissions have been reduced, well, as of 2008, back to 1990 levels, and this fall, with the next closure of the landfill gas and the landfill gas recovery project, we'll be 6% below our 1990 levels, so that's sort of equivalent to the Kyoto commitments. I think another thing that we take a lot of pride in is that we have the lowest greenhouse gas emissions per person of any city in North America, and we're amongst the leaders in the world. So to understand the plan and some of the points I'm going to make today, you need to know where they come from. A big part of our greenhouse gas emissions in Vancouver come from buildings, and that's primarily heating. The use of natural gas to create heat. That's a really big source of our greenhouse gas emissions. And when I say buildings, I'm also meaning industrial processes, commercial buildings, residential buildings. Light-duty vehicles are 32%, heavy trucks 5%, and then solid waste is 8%. So if you look at our 2008 levels, again, about the same as our 1990 levels, we were 2,750,000 tons per year. And if we did a projection, we've done some back-of-the-envelope projections, we thought there'd be a slight increase by 2020 if we just continued along our current trajectory. So we have to reduce almost 1 million tons per year out of our inventory in the next 10 years. That's not an insignificant task. So there will be a later presentation on our green mobility objectives, but I just wanted to touch on a couple of the points there, is that the proposed targets are to make over 50% of the trips by foot, cycle, or public transit, which is about it's up from 35 to 37% to 50%, which is, it will require significant investments in public transit, which again, that's not entirely in our control. But another concept here is recognizing that not only do we have to switch modes, but we actually have to decrease the total amount of travel fairly significantly. And that would either largely through land use and other mechanisms to reduce trip lengths or reduce the number of trips. In addition, we are aggressively pursuing low-carbon vehicles. We're quite aggressive and active in terms of North American leaders on supporting the deployment of electric vehicles. And we aim to have 15% of all new vehicle sales be plug-in electric by 2020. And the province is committed to take some, and it actually legislated some things that will help us as well in reaching our goals. As we move into buildings, Dave Ramsley's next presentation will talk a lot about new buildings and retrofitting existing buildings, but you can see the magnitude of the target. To get what we're sort of benchmarked for this one, we have to retrofit all of our buildings to reduce energy use and greenhouse gases by 20% in the next 10 years. So that is a massive undertaking, and Dave will talk more to that one. But another big strategy we have for reducing greenhouse gases from buildings is the large-scale deployment of renewable energy. And our lessons from doing the neighborhood energy utility at Southeast Falls Creek has taught us that this is actually an economically and technically viable way of doing very large-scale deployment of renewable energy today. So we kind of have a three-pronged strategy there, and it's really establish new district heating systems at large high-density development sites. So through eco-density, our rezoning conditions require a feasibility study over using life cycle economic analysis to determine if it's viable, and then if it looks viable, then we press with the developers to work out the details and then seek a utility partner to actually build a system. And some of the active studies and work we're doing right now, obviously Southeast Falls Creek is built and we're looking to expand. Northeast Falls Creek, we're right in the middle of that. East Fraser Lands, also very, very far along in the analysis there, and we're just getting underway in South Canby. One of the things I do want to want to point out, with the Olympic Village, we had a district energy system right from the start with a renewable heat source right from the start. Some of the challenges in these other sites is that because the renewable heat or the renewable energy costs more, sometimes you start with a conventional heating system, and then once there's enough development, that the economics justify a switch. So we're working on legal conditions that say, okay, you might have to start with a natural gas district heating system, but there's legal obligations and criteria that force a switch over to renewable. Second strategy is looking at, we actually have a couple very large existing district heating systems that use natural gas to generate steam, and we're looking at Central Heat, which provides steam to about 200 of the big buildings downtown, and we've done a screening study with them that says if you used biomass or wood waste to generate steam, you could reduce greenhouse gases there by about 80,000 tons a year, and it would cost less than just buying natural gas. So you could afford the investment in this massive new plant to do heat. So that's one possibility. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of things about getting the waste wood and dealing with air quality concerns and questions, but we're working through some of those issues. But looking at the hospitals, we're very active working with the hospitals as well, and they have a broader palette of things, and we're working with the hospitals actively to secure provincial funding to move forward with the renewable energy system at those locations. Finally, and I think what's really puts this above and beyond in terms of thinking for large-scale deployment of renewable energy is once you have renewable district energy systems, they're easy to grow at their peripheries. Getting them established is the tricky part, but once they exist, growing them where there's high density or high heat loads it looks quite viable. And so just strategically, we were looking at the hospitals in the Canby corridor, some of the large sites we have there, which in themselves might be good locations for district energy, but because it's along that corridor, through the Canby corridor principles and rezoning principles, we've already put in the criteria that they will be connectable to district energy, and if there is a low carbon system, they will be obligated to connect. As well, we're quite interested in the Broadway corridor. These little purple spots here, we did some mapping of where actually there's a whole bunch of existing demand for heat, which again would be a strategic opportunity to deploy district energy. And you can see the importance of the Central Broadway area as huge existing heat load densities, the downtown core. And what was actually really surprising to us, which we hadn't mapped, and with the Squamish band looking to develop their lands, this area here, which we term South Bridge, but south of Burrard Bridge there, may provide a very good opportunity as well. So that leads into sort of the final big point here is that through Greenest City, there's a shifting in mentality now that waste is actually a resource. Waste is not something that needs to be managed per se, but waste is something that you have value in and you can optimize. Some of the things that we're thinking about with waste, of course, is the waste diversion, to massively increase waste diversion. But one of the key things that a lot of people, it's easy to say we're going to divert more waste, but then what, right? It costs a lot to set up systems and do the sorting. There needs to be some purpose. Where would that waste go? And again, that leads us to these ideas of, as we've done with our organic diversion or separation in the single-family neighborhoods, that's now going out, and the company that's receiving that is Harvest Power, which actually is building a bio-digester, which in essence takes the organics and decomposes them anaerobically to produce a biogas, which is like a natural gas, but it comes from a natural process. As I suggested in one of the earlier slides, large-scale heating where you need steam, you can't just do hot water, will require a biomass source. And that leads to some synergies potentially between creating a market and a demand to actually deconstruct our buildings to get at a lot of that waste wood. I mean, in addition to park waste and that sort of thing, waste wood could be a hugely important resource moving forward in the future. And looking at things like the landfill, where we already capture gas there, that biogas could be used to heat all of the city buildings. Or we're looking now actively at purchasing some natural gas vehicles for our own trucking fleet, and to use the biogas in those would be a great win. So as you can see, we've done sort of what we call a draft emission reduction pathway that gets us our 950,000 tons. I think one of the things you'll realize in looking at that, any one of those initiatives is not a small thing. It is a very large task and a very large challenge, but one in which we have some concrete steps we can take in the short term. And again, as we move forward, we think more opportunities will emerge. I guess my final thought I often say is, we overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we underestimate what can be done in 10. And I think if you look at, pictures of what's happened to the city in the last 20 years anyhow, you can see great changes are possible. Thank you.